Thank you for the opportunity. That was an amazing presentation, sounded really, really nice. I come from Copenhagen. Originally, I'm from Iran, migrated to Dubai and then to Copenhagen, and I currently live in the UK. And in many ways, probably represent the group that I study at Oxford University. The way I'm going to structure my presentation is around 3 megatrends. I used to be a consultant at the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, where we studied future developments, megatrends, and the consequences of these. So I'm going to structure my presentation around that. Do I have... Sorry, how do I... That's... Okay, this is it. Okay, let me just... Great. I am going to talk about 3 megatrends, and these are population development, globalization, and polarization. But I'm going to start off with a burning platform, and I think that the talk by the minister kind of gave a good basis for that. This is a study that I really, really like, and it's available online, and I think that it would be of advantage for you to have a look at that. It's the Global Migration Barometer developed by the World Bank. They're actually pretty much leading within the field. They created an amazing study of migration stocks around the world. And this study actually shows the attractiveness and accessibility of different countries compared to each other. And I picked out Ireland and compared it with a few other countries that I found of relevance. The way they measure attractiveness to migrants, they look at the opportunities on the labor market, the educational system, to see whether the country is actually attractive to come to. And ranking from 1 to 61, where 1 is the best, Ireland ranks number 9, which is pretty decent. You see Sweden, 7, UK, 2. So there is room for improvement. Canada, 6, Denmark, 12. However, I think that it's actually the second row that's the most interesting here, which is accessibility. Because where attractiveness, it's long-term strategies, of course you can affect that. Accessibility is actually something you can do from today and within the next time, and actually make the country more accessible for migrants, the ones you really need. So if you look at the country that I admire the most, actually, and the country I've studied a lot, that's Canada, and to look at their strategies for how to recruit. And I think the system is really, really simple and really, really easy to understand. And I think that if I were to apply to go to Canada, it would take me approximately 10 minutes, and I would actually have sent in my application and be part of the process and be there within a few months. It's really easy, really understandable. If you look at a country like Denmark, we have spent loads of time developing our Immigration Act, and we rank as 47. That's 15 places behind Kazakhstan. So you can really understand how, I mean, accessibility, that's, you know, the quality of the legislation, the immigration legislation, the labor market legislation, that's the quality, and that's really where you need to focus to see, is our country accessible? Because I mean, obviously, attractiveness is just one aspect of that. The second thing I'd like to highlight is actually something that follows the World Bank study. This is another study by UCD and Doc here, which is a leading expert on the field. Unfortunately, much of the data tends to be a few years old because it's so difficult to access the data. So this is why this is from 2009, but the analysis, there has been estimations for 2012. And you see, actually, if we go back to Denmark, 47 in accessibility, you see that there tends to be, you know, tends to go together. So in Denmark, only 6% of the population is foreign, and only around 16% of these are high-skilled. Compared to that, Canada, that is around 22%, and actually approximately 60% of these are high skilled. So you tend to see that if you work strategically with your accessibility, you tend to get good results. I'm not going to go much more into that. That could be a doctorate in itself, but I just wanted to highlight that this is really the burning platform. Great. So the three megatrends I want to highlight: population development. I don't need to go into that. Most of you are probably much more aware of the population development in Ireland than I am. But however, I think there is one thing that we tend to miss when we talk about, increasing number of seniors and too few to replace them: the quality of the labor force. And I think that's a very, very important thing to look at, investigate. This is a study done by the Economic Intelligence Group. I've ran through a range of different studies. This one, I wouldn't say it's the Bible. You should probably be a bit skeptical of that. But however, it's one of the better ones I've seen. And what they look at is quality of they create a range of different indexes, from the quality of the educational system, the quality of the labor market legislation, and based on that, they have created the Global Talent Index. So where is the best talent in the world? Where can you access the best talent in the world? Here, the US ranks as #1, then comes the Scandinavian countries. I know that you sent me a study showing that the quality of labor in Ireland ranks as #1. But according to other studies, you rank number 16, and the projection is that towards 2015, you would actually lose 1 place. So that's the projection at this point. And these are the countries you kind of compare yourselves with. So the Scandinavian countries, then we have other. But as you see, most of these countries are actually mature markets. And this is really, really important to have in mind when you create your strategies for where do we want to recruit the talent from. That is really important to see. So what is the quality of the talent that I will get? Because one of the things you actually see at the moment is that there is great diversity in quality when you recruit from other countries. And still, Ireland is in the top 20. So you still tend to have very, very good quality talent. So I usually say maybe we're old, but we definitely look good. So I think that it's really important when you recruit, for instance, from emerging markets, that you have this in mind, that you would get, different qualities of talent in. Great. Globalization, again, a well-known fact. I'm just going to touch upon that aspect of globalization that has to do with talent mobility. And at the moment, what you see is that the global workforce is actually increasing with 1.8% per year, and 1 in 30 is part of the global workforce. If you take internal mobility, the number is actually greater. So, I mean, the opportunities, and it's increasing. So the opportunities are massive, and being a researcher within the field is a really exciting time. So I think that the advantage is we have more and more people who travel for work. And another thing that's really good about it is that often, probably also in Ireland, you have had these debates whether you're replacing the native workforce with workforce from abroad. And there is good news, because what you tend to see is that the people who often tend to leave are quite different from the natives that live in Ireland, for instance, or in Denmark. You tend to have the people leaving a country, they tend to be either very low skilled, absolutely no qualifications, or they tend to be extremely high skilled. So you have this polarization in the people who immigrate. Then, contrary to that, you have the native population, and that's the other curve, where you tend to have a middle group that is middle educated. So they tend to lie in between. So it's like the filling of a sandwich. So you have the low-skilled migrants who take jobs that the natives don't want to take, or you have the immigrants who take jobs that the natives can't take, like in the IT sector, for instance. And then you have the middle group. And I think it was a really good point by the minister, saying that, for instance, within the IT sector, every time you hire, for instance, an engineer, IT technician, you create 5 new jobs. That was a study based on some of the data from semiconductor in the US. We have done similar studies in Denmark where it shows that every time you hire a high skill, directly you're creating 2 new jobs for the native population. And I think that's such a good argument, especially in a time with unemployment, to go out and say this is actually a good strategy to break unemployment growth by actually recruiting from abroad. So I think this is, again, the differences in skill is a very good way, and it's a good strategy to see what do we want. And at the same time, everybody is talking about the high skill, and I think it's really important to talk about the high skill. But when you talk about the high skill, you also need to talk about the low skill. Because when you hire someone from abroad, that person probably also needs some kind of au pair or house help. They need all sorts of different services, from going to restaurants and going to the movies. And that creates new jobs within a sector that's often also a bit difficult to fill out. So you need to take these 2 things into consideration at once and not separately, because they're interlinked.